Welcome to season 2 of Crystal Uncorked. I am so freaking excited. There have been so many things I feel like that have happened since we last chatted back in November. And in this episode, I'm going to share about the process that I took over these past couple of months. I had a lot of downtime, a lot of time to think, got a lot of clarity, and definitely had to move through some things. So I want to talk about that on our opener for season 2, and then also share what's in store for season 2 because we're going to change the format a little bit. So let's get this party started. Are you ready to open up and talk about all things business? I'm Crystal Vilkaitis, a curious entrepreneur who loves talking about business, especially over a glass of wine. I started Crystal Uncorked to share open and honest conversations about my journey and talk to other entrepreneurs about their experiences. We pull back the curtain and talk about the highs and the lows. Wine isn't required, but is recommended. This is Crystal Uncorked. Okay, so first of all, cheers! It's been too long, friend. I hope you've been well. I am drinking a Chianti Classico, so cheers. I've been drinking more Chianti Classicos because our friends that are here in Colorado that we hang out with a lot, Vi and Christina, aren't big Cab Merlot people. So we've been trying some Chianti Classicos and I'm just kind of loving them. So that is delicious. Okay, if you are new here, Season 1 concluded in November of 2021, and that was not totally planned. It kind of snuck up on me, and I was feeling the need to take a break. And I am so glad I did because I had a lot of ahas. And I'm excited to share some of those in this episode. Now, I had a lot of transition the end of last year. Dustin and I and our 2 dogs moved from California to Colorado, and we were staying in an Airbnb for a few months until our house was ready. And through that, of course, like we're in a new state. I'm back home. I grew up here in Northern Colorado. I'm catching up with friends and seeing family. And it's winter time, and there's just a lot of transition and like kind of getting settled. And I just felt so pulled to take a break. And so I did. And I definitely had a lot of fear around that. Like, what will people think? Like, oh, it's her first season. She already needs a break. I had a lot of fears that people wouldn't come back and listen to season 2. But you know what? Like, I just really needed to listen to myself and take that break. And I'm really glad that I did because I really needed to rest. And I allowed myself to rest, but I definitely had guilt with resting too. It was very weird. But honestly, I realized that this is a very common thing, at least the people that I talk to about this. So I structured my business in October, like when I moved throughout October, and then starting in November, I was really able to take a back seat. I had some time. The team was running the ship. And, you know, that's often a big goal for a business owner is to get the right people in the right seats who can run the business, do the day-to-day, and you could be that visionary and strategic thinker for the company. So I was so grateful that I had this company in place and these people in place to really keep the ship moving. And while I kind of had this break during this transition time, and I was really allowed to think more strategically, bigger picture, and rest because I was just kind of going pretty hard for a while there. I think we all have been in 2020 and 2021. The world changed. My business, you know, we had our best 2 years, the past 2 years. We've been very busy. And so it was great to take the break. I got to a place where, towards the end of the break, I wasn't even setting an alarm, which is super unlike me. I always set an alarm, even like when I'm vacationing or on weekends. Just I want to get up and do stuff, and so I didn't make myself go to bed at any time. Just whenever I was feeling tired, I would go to bed. Whenever I woke up, I woke up. And like I said, I had some guilt around that because I was around my dad who works really hard and his wife works really hard and my grandma's got so much going on. And I was like, man, I feel like I have so much time. So I kept saying to them, like, if you need me, let me know. I'm happy to help you. And they didn't need me as much as I thought they would. So I just had this time, and I was talking to some entrepreneur friends about the guilt I had for taking the break. And I was at a business networking event, and the woman who puts it on was talking about her having guilt of taking a day off or a couple days. She was just feeling really overwhelmed. And I'm like, why don't you take a day off? And she was like, oh, I'll just feel so guilty. I just always have to do something. And I just feel like there's an element like, I think that this happens a little bit more with women than men, where we feel like we have to produce, get stuff done. We have this to-do list. It's hard to slow us down, but we really do need to rest in order to bring our best self forward. And that was definitely where I was at. I needed to rest. I needed my body to catch up with everything that was going on and really think about things, because I had a lot of unclarity. I had a lot of uncertainty around Crystal Uncorked. What was I doing? Where am I going? And I had some uncertainty with Crystal Media as well, trying to get really clear on like the vision. Where are we going? What are we doing? I had a lot of ideas, but needed to organize them. And I, unfortunately, like during that time, the break, I just didn't feel creative at all. I didn't feel like I want to put myself out there. So I didn't want to film. I didn't want to, really be on social media much. I really wanted to be inward. I wanted to read. I watched a lot of YouTube videos about podcasting, and just kind of was like, went with the flow and being okay with that, because it's very unlike me. I like to produce. I like to achieve. And I know this now even more so through this break, because one thing I did in my downtime was I got to know myself better. And I really recommend this. This was really helpful for me. I've talked about human design on the podcast in the past, and Enneagram. I'm an Enneagram 3. There was a new personality test I learned about called Print, where you learn about your unconscious motivators. And I'm a 3-4 for that. And that means that I need to succeed and achieve. That's my major motivator. And then my minor is that I need to feel special and have meaning in my life. And I would take those tests. I would look at my astrology charts, get to know myself a little bit better. And then I would start journaling and asking questions of like, why do I feel that way? Or what if it was this way? Or one of my favorite questions was, think back to a time where you just felt so alive and excited. And I call this your made it moment, which we're going to talk a lot about made it moments in season 2. And made it moments could be small or big. But I instantly was taken back to this place back when I was 21 years old. And I was in a finalist for an award at a women's networking event. And I'm going to talk more about that event on a future episode, because it's just so special. It deserves its own episode. But I gave myself the time to ask those questions, to remember this. I pulled this memory out of the bank, and I just haven't thought of it in so long. And it reminded me of what lights up my heart, what lights up my soul. And it's business women. And it's conferences, and it's in person. And then I had this vision of me creating a conference, and I was like, I want 200 women in the room, and we're just gonna hug each other. We're gonna laugh. We're gonna cry. We're gonna have breakthroughs, and I want to bring awesome guests onto the stage. And so I really want to create that. That is something that is a personal goal for myself. But because I had that time to think and ask different questions and like give myself space, I remembered who I was, which is like, whew, that was necessary. I needed that. I really needed that, because I am an achiever. I like to succeed. I like to compete. I like to create. And I was just feeling so unlike myself and kind of out of alignment. And I needed to take a break, and then get back to center. And I shared on Instagram just some of the vulnerabilities I was going through this process, because I was like, I just really want clarity, and I want the answers. And Michelle, who is a listener of the show, she's a retailer. She's going to be on a future episode of Crystal Uncorked. She messaged me and said, sometimes you got to take a break to have a breakthrough. And that really hit home for me because shortly after that, like days after I posted those stories about like feeling so stuck, I had the breakthrough. We moved into our house January 4th. It took about a week or two to kind of like get settled, get your routine. I started my morning routine where I get up early, make my coffee. I do some room temperature water with a squeeze of lemon, make my coffee, put collagen in it, sit down on the couch in the living room and put my coffee on the coffee warmer. Beautiful music is playing. And I just look out in my house now. I've got this beautiful scene of the country. Like you look far enough and you could see horses. And we've got this open space behind our house. So you're not like right next to a neighbor. And there's snow on the ground. And I just felt so inspired and so creative. And it was like I had the break I needed. And boom, it was like everything opened for me. The ideas came flooding in for Crystal Uncorked, for Crystal Media. Like I had so much clarity, excitement, motivation. It was like, she's back, I'm here. And what's so funny is that like part of learning about myself and how I know like I need to achieve and succeed and I need to create what I did with kind of like taking a step back from my business, letting the team really run it. I gave myself so much time and space. And I'll talk more about that in a future episode because people have asked me a lot of questions on like how I've done that. And I'm so happy to share. But like I gave myself so much time and that's like the opposite of what I need. I don't need downtime. I need inspiration. I need to create. I need to produce and achieve. And so I was so glad that I had the break because I had the breakthrough like Michelle talks about where the ideas came just funneling in and I knew like, Crystal, you are someone who needs this to run with. Take it, girl. Go. Just run. Just go. And so that's exactly where I'm at now. So I started, like journaling all these ideas and I had so many ideas for Crystal Uncorked. And so one thing I started doing is I'm such a believer that two heads are better than one. And I really like brainstorming and I'm a communicator. I'm a Gemini, I like talking everything through. So I reached out to a lot of people and got their feedback on some ideas of a new show that I'll be launching in April and got feedback about Crystal Uncorked and what direction should I do and should I have structure and what questions should I ask? And all of a sudden, I found myself feeling that like stuckness again, uncertain, what am I doing? And it was because I was having a lot of people's feedback and ideas and what they thought. And I wasn't really listening to me anymore. And it was like I was almost looking for permission to create the show I want to create and to create another show that I want to create and go in certain places with Crystal Media. And I was like, I'm realizing this about myself. I kind of search for that permission. And because I don't know why, I need to explore that a little bit. I think because maybe then it's easier to like, someone says, yeah, go for it. And I'm like, great, I can go. But until somebody gives me the go, I'm waiting and unsure. And will this work? Will I fail? All the head trash, right? It happened to me just today. I was on a mastermind call and with 5 ladies that we've been doing these masterminds for several years. And I made a comment about something and they're like, Crystal, stop asking for permission. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing it again. So that's a big focus for me, really trusting myself. And so that's what I ended up doing. I was feeling so stuck. I had like all this motivation, all this creativity. And then I was like asking all these people things. And then I got stuck again. And I'm like, you know what? What do you want? What do you want? And that was one of those days where I had that vision of like, when have you felt just electric, alive, your heart sang? And it was that moment on that stage looking out at 2,000 business women. And I'm like, that is what I fucking want. I've known this all along. And I'll share several stories that lead up to that. And so that means that it's business. Like I love business. I love business women. I've just kind of naturally been attracted to them through networking groups, and a lot of our clients at Crystal Media are women. A lot of the listeners of Crystal Uncorked are women. And so I was like, okay, commit. Because I felt like I needed a little bit more structure with Crystal Uncorked. And I did get some advice that was great from my videographer friend who said, you really should pick an audience. I was talking about life and business, and no topic was off limit in season 1. I just wanted to talk to inspiring people and share my life. But that kind of was hard because it was like, well, what do I want to talk about today? Who should I go find an interview? So I felt like I needed more clarity for myself. And then my videographer said, you really need it for your listeners too. Like when you have a little bit more structure, it's easy for them to follow along. They use less mental energy when listening. And then they can also identify, like, is this a show for me or not? And so I really loved that. That aligned with how I was feeling. And so I am definitely moving forward with that. And I'll tell you that in a second. But the biggest thing for me was I stopped asking for permission, and I'm like, you got to just start this. So I picked a date. I picked March 2nd, 2022. It felt so good. And I was like, okay, here's my date. And I worked backwards. Many years ago, somebody once gave me the advice that if you ever want to start a conference, just pick a date and a venue, and then everything else will fall into place. And it's so true, because the hardest part is getting started, I think. Truly, I believe that. It's so hard to just get started. And when you have a date, and especially then, of course, I shared it on Instagram and I started talking about it. Well, now I have accountability, so I need to work backwards. So then I'm getting my guests booked, and I'm getting my new photos, and I'm scripting my solo episodes, and I'm just getting everything in line for my launch. And it's been a little, like, ooh, here we go. Excitement, but also pressure and nerves. What will people think? All the stuff. I think there's an element of that may never go away for me. Like the care of what people will think of the show. But I work through it. I'm just putting myself out there anyways, because this is what I want. And I have a very clear vision of where I'm going. And I'm just very excited for it. So just a quick recap of kind of what I've learned over my sabbatical, if you will, is 1, try to have rest without guilt. Because when I was able to free myself from feeling guilty, I felt more like I could rest, and then it was more luxurious and enjoyable. And I really needed to nurture myself and have that self-love and self-care to be able to bring it now, to have that break for the breakthrough, right? And then get to know yourself. I think that we get so caught up in our lives, in taking care of our families, our friends, our jobs, our businesses, that we can forget about ourselves and what we care about, what matters to us. And sometimes we also just follow what other people think we should do instead of getting clear on, like, no, this is what I want to do. And then having the courage to take the step and do it. And I know that can be so hard. But I think it's so critical to learn more about yourself so you can get clarity on what the future does look like for you. What kind of business do you want to have? What kind of people do you want to work with? You don't have to have this multi-million-dollar massive business where you make all this money, you have this time freedom, where some people might want that. Maybe you're wanting to generate some income for yourself that supports you and your family, and you put a little away for retirement, but it gives you several hours a day with your kids. Like, what is it that is meaningful to you, that motivates you? And try to align with that. I think that's so important. And then finally, stop asking for permission and trust yourself. If you're like me, searching for people to be like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Oh, you should totally do that. Oh, I love that. Don't wait for people to love your ideas. Don't wait for people to give you the green light. If you fucking feel it, do it. That should be my quote graphic. If you fucking feel it, do it. Just do it. I started season 1 of Crystal Uncorked with why not me? And I keep reminding myself about that too. Why not me? So I don't want to hold myself back. I give myself permission, and then I am trusting myself. And the next thing that I'll finalize with of what I learned is just patience is required. That was a really hard one for me. I wanted to take a week off, and then I had all the answers, all the ideas, the motivation's back, the creativity's back, let's fucking go. It didn't work that way for me. It took me several months, and getting in here and asking the questions, going through, I trust in divine timing. I trust that everything happens for a reason. There are no coincidences. I feel like everything is how it's supposed to be. And when it's taking longer than you want it to, it's very frustrating. And it's easy to get caught up in that and feel like a failure, or you're never going to find yourself again. You're never going to have the answer. You're going to be stuck for the rest of your life. You're going to have to make sacrifices. You can't live up to your true potential. Whatever. It's not true. You might just need a little more time. You might need to ask better questions. You might need to get to know yourself a little bit more. You might need to rest a little bit more. Take that break for that breakthrough. But trust yourself and trust that it will happen. That is what I learned. And I hope that something within this episode helps you along your journey. So let's quickly talk about what to expect in season 2. I mentioned that there's a little bit of change in structure. I am going to, I've curated some questions that I'm so excited, and each guest gets to pick between those questions of what they'd like me to ask on the show. We'll still have natural, open, honest conversations, but these guests are entrepreneurs and business owners. So we still will talk about personal and life stuff because that naturally comes up, but we're going to be pretty focused on entrepreneurs in season 2. And my questions are designed to help celebrate the entrepreneur and to help talk about the highs and the lows, peek behind the curtain and really be honest about what it takes to run a business, because it's not always easy and fun and exciting and produces a ton of money for you. Like, there's a lot of challenges. It's hard work. You're trying to figure it out. And so we're going to talk about all that. So I'm very excited for you. Several guests are lined up and ready to go, and I know you're going to love them. And if you want to be a guest on the show, go to crystaluncorked.com, click on contact, fill out that form. I would love to learn more about you and possibly have you on the show, which would be so fun. And if you know of any business friends that might want to listen to a podcast or watch it on YouTube about honest and open conversations about business over a glass of wine, then please invite them to Crystal Uncorked. I'd love to have them a part of this community. Let's do one more cheers to season 1 or season 2. We could cheers season 1 too. Cheers to them both. Love it. Such a great wine. I just got it at Costco, by the way. Chianti Classico. Doc label. It's got to be doc label. And I'm really learning Costco's got some excellent wines. A listener once recommended last year that maybe I should do all Costco wines. Maybe I do that on season 2. We'll see. My guest next week is Una Duncan. She's a fitness expert, a best-selling author, so incredibly inspiring, energetic. I love this woman. I've known her for several years. She truly is just a light and has been such a mentor to me. And I've learned so much from her, and I just love her energy. I know you're going to love her. So she's going to be on next week. So don't miss that episode, and I'll see you on the next See You. Bye-bye. All right, let's keep this conversation going. Join me on Instagram. I'm at Crystal Uncorked. And I need to tell you, thank you so much for listening to this show. It truly means the world to me. If you're enjoying Crystal Uncorked, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Okay, I'll see you on the next See You. Cheers, friend.